Hey guys, tonight we're heading back. Way back, to a time when gods didn't live in the sky, they lived in temples. Wrapped in gold, surrounded by silence, and watched you breathe. Tonight, you're not a hero, you're not a priest. You're not even important really, you're just a guy with a broom, whose job is to sleep next to statues that supposedly contain gods. And honestly, you probably won't survive a week. You feel the heat of the day bleeding from the temple stones. As you arrive, the dusk wind smells like crushed myrrh and old prayers. The sun is bowing behind the western dunes, and the shadows in the temple of Hika are starting to stretch a little too far. The head priest barely looks at you. Name? He says, holding a wax tablet. You tell him. He marks it down like someone recording a fruit shipment. You'll be sleeping in the eastern sanctuary. The air's cooler there, he adds, without warmth. The gods are quieter. You nod like that makes sense. Your cot is a folded reed mat beneath the outstretched hand of a sandstone statue. You don't ask which god it is. Frankly, the eyes look recent, like someone carved them this morning. You're shown the corridor to patrol. It's not long, just 5 rooms, 2 courtyards, and a hall lined with murals of things you don't dare look at too closely. Your job, keep the temple clean, keep the fire lit, and most importantly, sleep here. Every night. They call it vigil. Duty, they say it pleases the gods. They don't say why none of the older attendants are willing to do it anymore. You sweep. You check the torches. You hum to yourself, just to fill the air. But the moment your voice fades, the temple settles, the way an animal does when it knows you're watching. The first night, nothing happens. Well, unless you count the sound of stone breathing. You convince yourself it's the wind. Or maybe your own heartbeat echoing back too loud. The second night, the oil lamp flickers even though there's no breeze. You check it. It's fine. Then it flickers again. Then it goes out. You try not to think of the stories, the ones about possessions, about how gods sometimes choose their hosts not by rank or piety, but by proximity. You start sleeping with one eye open. By the third night, you've memorized the shape of every crack in the wall. You start naming the statues just to stay sane. Call one tall boy, another grumpy eyes. One particularly smooth-faced goddess becomes Mum. It helps. Until you catch Mum's statue facing a different direction than the night before. No one believes you. You're tired. The priest says, waving you away like smoke. The mind plays tricks in holy places. But you remember exactly where Mum was facing. And now her eyes are on the cot. Your cot. You start to dream. Not normal dreams. Heavy dreams. Dreams where your feet don't touch the floor. Where light bends around you. Where something whispers your name, but it's not a voice. More like a pressure. One night you dream of a desert sky filled with mirrors. Each mirror reflecting a different moment in time. Some show you old and gray, sweeping. Some show you buried. One shows you standing very still, with glowing eyes. You wake up sweating. There are footprints around your mat. Bare. Wide. Not yours. You check the soot near the brazier. No ash was disturbed. You don't sleep that night. You sit up and count the cracks again. 70-2. Still 70-2. Good. You notice one small crack looks like a falcon if you squint. You name it. Watcher. You decide not to blink at Watcher again. The head priest begins giving you short nods in passing, the kind reserved for people who might accidentally be divine now. Someone places a small bowl of lotus seeds at your post. No explanation. You eat them. You regret nothing, except maybe the dream that night, where a jackal licked your ear and whispered a prophecy involving frogs, eclipses, and your second cousin. Some say this temple was built on the remains of an older one, that the gods here are second tenants, that sometimes they remember things no one told them. Others say the whole temple was designed for sleepwalking rituals, that true messages from the gods only arrive when you're half awake. Half-afraid. You start to believe it, because you're always half awake now, and more than a little afraid. But still you show up, you lie down, you listen, because you know the silence in this place is never really empty. And somehow, that's the only thing keeping you sane. You start leaving offerings, not big ones, just little things. A date, a reed coil, a smoothed river stone that looks vaguely like a beetle. You don't ask for anything in return. That's the trick, right? You're not praying, you're just being polite. But the gods notice, or something does, because the offerings begin to move. The date disappears one night. The next morning in its place is a blue bead carved with the eye of Horus. You didn't hear anything, you didn't see anything. But now, the bead's sitting exactly where you left your offering, like a thank you note from someone who doesn't have fingers. You wear the bead around your neck. It's warm. Always. You sweep more carefully now. You bow slightly when you pass certain statues, especially tall boy, because you're 95% sure his shoulders weren't that broad last week. And then one night, you hear it. Breathing. Not your own. It's slow, rhythmic, not raspy like human breath, more like wind pushed through stone. Like a building sighing. You stand very still, holding your broom like a sword that forgot how to be sharp. The sound is coming from the main hall, the sanctuary, the place you're not supposed to go after midnight. Naturally, you go. Your footsteps echo like they're afraid to be loud. The torches flicker as you pass, not from wind, because there is none, but from something else, like they're reacting to your heartbeat. You reach the sanctuary doors. They're slightly ajar. You've never seen them. Open. You push. Inside, darkness. Thick as mud. Then, your eyes adjust, and you see them. The gods. Dozens of them. Looming. Seated on carved thrones. Some with falcon heads, others with ibis beaks, some with faces smoothed into pure stone, and one that is just a golden cube with red eyes. Their gaze isn't on you. It's on the floor. Where something is drawing in the dust. You can't make out its shape. It's bent over, hunched, moving like it's part of the temple, like an extra shadow that forgot how to rest. You take a step closer. It freezes. Turns. There is nothing where the face should be, just a void. A blank space in the shape of a question. Then it whispers, not with sound, but in your head, "You shouldn't be here yet," and vanishes. The room returns to stillness like a held breath released. You leave, slowly, not running. You never run in a place where gods sleep. The next day, the high priest calls you by name for the first time. His eyes flick to the bead at your throat, then to your hands. "They marked you," he says softly. "You'll need salt now, and a story." He doesn't explain what either of those things mean, but you're handed a bowl of salt and told to sleep with it near your head. You do. And that night, you dream of a staircase descending into the earth, each step carved with hieroglyphs that rearrange themselves as you walk. At the bottom, a door. Behind it, the sound of weeping. Some say temples were designed not just as homes for gods, but as machines built to shape thought, mold dreams, bend will. The blueprints weren't for buildings. They were for minds. Others claim the early priest architects believed memory could soak into stone, that if you slept near something long enough, it would remember you, and you'd start remembering it. You don't know what to believe, but when you pass Mom the next morning, you swear she's smiling now, just a little, just enough, and somehow, you feel proud, even if you're not sure why. You think you're getting used to it. The flickering torchlight, the silence that presses behind your eyes, the way the air in the sanctuary always smells faintly like copper and forgotten incense. You even start humming again, not to drown out the quiet, but to speak into it like you're answering someone. Then comes the goose. It's laid on the offering slab, wings folded, throat painted with ochre, the rituals done hours ago. You're sweeping petals and stray feathers from The floor when something rustles. You glance up. The goose is standing, not twitching, not spasming, not UNDEA, D dot, just standing dot alive dot. Its head turns toward you, eyes gleaming in the torchlight. Calm. You don't scream. You should. Instead, you blink, rub your eyes. Look again dot. It's gone. Not dead. Not lying back down. Gone. You rush to the corridor. Nothing dot. Just the distant slap of sandals from a passing priest and the ever-present breath of the temple. Stones. You don't tell anyone. Not at first. Because how do you explain that one of the sacred offerings decided it was done, playing dead, and walked off like it had a better appointment? The next night, the same altar holds a bowl of figs. When you return an hour later, there's a fresh feather on the slab. White downy still. Warm. You tuck it into your sleeve without thinking. You're starting to collect odd things now. Not for superstition. For comfort. A broken seal ring. A dried lotus petal that curled like a smile. A scrap of parchment with ink that only shows under moonlight. Your little museum of things that shouldn't be dot. You begin to notice a pattern. Offerings don't behave. The priesthood rotates through them nightly. But sometimes the grapes rot too fast. Sometimes the wine bubbles without heat. Once, a stone jar full of barley hums when you touch it. You tell the master priest dot. He stares at you for a long time dot, then finally says, "They're starting to answer." He gives you a new task. You're to record anything strange. So you begin a ledger, not a proper papyrus scroll. Just a collection of charcoal marks hidden in the corner of your mat. Night 7, statue of Hathor smelled like cinnamon. Night 8, footprints, goose again, feather on brazier. Night 9, humming jar sang an old lullaby. You sleep lighter now. Dreams come easier too. One night you float above the temple, looking down on it as if it were a sand carving. You see light rising from the sanctuary, a column of pale blue reaching the stars. Within it, shapes move. People, gods, you, all flickering like fire behind silk. You wake with tears on your face and sand. In your mouth, inside, in your cot. No explanation. Some say the ancient priests bred geese not for meat, but for messages. That the honking wasn't noise, but coded language. That certain geese were trained to deliver messages to the afterlife and occasionally bring replies. Others claim the gods simply find it funny to reanimate things we're sure are finished. You're not laughing, but you are watching and waiting, because now, every time you pass the offering slab, you wonder what else has legs and when it might decide to use them. The embalming room smells like crushed juniper, resin, and something darker, something sweet and spoiled at the same time, like a fruit that doesn't know it's gone bad yet. You try not to breathe through your nose. The pharaoh lies on a golden bier, his face already masked in linen oil. His hands, once ringed with lapis in command, are folded calmly over his chest. The embalmers have left. The torches burn low, and you've been told very specifically not to touch anything. You weren't told why you're here tonight, but they gave you new linens, and they called you by title. Watcher. You roll that word around in your head like a lozenge you don't want to swallow. Watcher of what? The gods? The pharaoh? Yourself? It's quiet, that's so quiet that you start to hear the settling sounds of the stone, the crackle of flame in the copper lamp, the tick-tick of some unseen grain dropping from a broken pouch in the corner. And then the exhale. Soft. Barely there, but unmistakable. You freeze. It came from the beer. From the pharaoh. Your brain starts doing that horrible math it always does when something impossible happens. Did I imagine that? Could it be air trapped in the wrappings? Maybe the body was still releasing gases. No. It happens again. This time louder. Like breath from someone having a dream. Not dying, sleeping. You look around. No one. You take a step closer. Your sandals brush against a shard of alabaster. It skitters across the floor like it's trying to get away from this scene. 2. You lean in. The face under the linen doesn't move, but the wrappings lift slightly, once, twice with the rhythm of breath. You whisper, "Your Majesty?" Because, honestly, what else are you supposed to say? There's no reply, but the lamp nearest the body flares blue, then steadies. A windless flicker. Your hand goes instinctively to the bead. Around your neck, still warm, still. Watching, you don't run, because something in you, something that has been slowly shifting night by night, wants to know. Wants to stay. So, you sit, cross-legged on the cool floor beside the beer, and you listen. The pharaoh doesn't speak, but the room starts to hum, not aloud, just beneath everything. A frequency that isn't sound but present. Your teeth ache slightly. Your fingertips tingle. Your thoughts slow. You lean against the stone pillar and drift. You don't know how long you sleep, but you dream of a city of gold buried deep beneath the sand. Of a man with your face, carving hieroglyphs into stone using his breath. Of a chorus of voices asking, who lies in the tomb when memory forgets the name? You wake with a jolt. The room is dark. The lamps are out. The beer is empty, but the linen wrapping lies exactly as before. Folded. Perfect. As if never touched. Only the faint indentation on the cloth suggests anything was ever there. And the dust. The dust has been disturbed. Footprints, faint and bare, lead away from the beer and vanish at the far wall. The wall with no door. Some say the dead kings were never meant to stay still, that the rituals were designed not to preserve, but to contain. That the pharaohs, if left unsupervised, would rise and continue ruling, even without a body. Others whisper that sleep near a royal tomb erases parts of your own life, so that when the king wakes, he can borrow from yours. You look down at your hands. They seem the same, but you can't quite remember your sister's name, or if you ever had one. You hear the scratching before you see him. Late, much later than you're supposed to still be awake. The lamps are burned low. Your reed mat is still warm from your back, and your eyes are in that strange between state. Too tired to stay open. Too nervous to close. Then, scratch. A soft rhythmic scritch, scritch. Like beetle legs on limestone. You push aside the curtain. Down the corridor, the sanctuary glow is strange, cooler than firelight. Pale blue, like moonlight drawn with a steady hand. And there he is, a man, robed in linen so white it almost hums. Thin, slight, seated cross-legged before the wall of the western passage. Writing. But not on papyrus. He writes on the wall itself. Except, you don't see any ink. You step closer. The glyphs appear behind his hand, glowing for a moment before fading into the stone like mist on water. No pigment. No tool. Just his finger. And something you don't understand. He doesn't turn. He doesn't stop. He just writes line after line of script. You almost recognize, but not quite. The letters dance just outside your memory. Then softly he speaks. Don't blink. You'll lose the sentence. You freeze. Your breath catches in your throat. The torch in your hand sizzles as if it's nervous too. You don't blink. The glyphs form slowly, each one pulsing faintly. Then as you exhale, you understand. One. Just one. It reads, you are the pen. Your stomach flips. You blink. And the entire wall is bare. Again. Smooth sandstone. No writing. No scribe. Just the cold hush of a corridor that has seen too many secrets. You stand there for what feels like hours. When you finally return to your mat, the torch in your hand has long since gone out. The next night, you return to the same wall. Nothing. The next, the same. But on the fourth night, someone has left a scroll at the foot of your mat, tied in blue thread. It smells like frankincense and sun-heated linen. Inside, one sentence, written in the same script. You don't recognize the hand, but you recognize the glow. If you remember this, it means it's working. Some say temple scribes were more than record keepers, that certain ones were chosen not to write history, but to correct it, that they wrote not with ink, but with memory. And memory, when repeated often enough, rewrites the stone. Others believe some glyphs aren't meant to be seen at all, that they write themselves only for the gods, or for those gods are beginning to notice. You start leaving a blank scrap of parchment beside your cot every night, just in case. By the seventh night, there are small symbols appearing on it by morning. No one else sees them. No one else seems to see the scribe, but you do. Sometimes. Just for a moment. A flicker in the corner of your eye, a hum in the stone, a breath on your ear, and you wonder if he's writing the walls. Who's writing you? You're not sure when the dream stopped being yours. Maybe it was the night the scribe whispered to the wall and your name appeared in a dreamscape of falling papyrus leaves. Maybe it was earlier. Maybe you've always been dreaming someone else's. Sleep. Now, when you close your eyes, you don't drift. You drop into visions too sharp to be imagination. Your hands hold tools you've never touched. You speak languages you've never learned. You stand atop pyramids that no longer exist, watching constellations that don't match any sky. You dream of a field of black water, with stars bobbing on its surface like lanterns. You stand at its edge, barefoot, and a voice one you know isn't yours asks, "What are you willing to forget to remember?" You wake with tears in your ears and sand on your lips. The priests notice. They start watching you as you pass, whispering behind folded arms. You hear a new word, echo-born. One even bows, just a little. You begin to notice that certain dreams leave behind residues, not physical, not quite, but impressions. After one dream where you climbed a staircase of copper light, your skin smells faintly of metal for days. After another, where you were submerged in a pool beneath a statue of Sekhmet. Your eyes are bloodshot, but your joints no longer ache. But the worst ones are the dreams that feel unfinished. You start one scene, then snap awake just as you reach for something. An answer, a face, a door. The sensation lingers like a sneeze that never comes. You grow tired, but not in the sleepy way. Tired like you're carrying too many selves. And then one night, you see it. Not in a dream. Not imagined. On the wall of the sanctuary. An image, freshly painted. Though you saw no brush, a figure seated cross-legged, head bowed, a bead around the neck, your bead. Underneath, a single glyph, sleeper. And below that, owned. You reach out. The stone is warm to the touch. The paint is still wet. You step back, your heart a drum against your ribs. The torchlight flares, and for the briefest moment, the figure in the painting breathes. You blink. At stone again. Some say that dreaming near gods was never safe, that they have no dreams of their own, so they take yours. That sleep is just the lease we sign with memory. And some landlords aren't human. Others believe the gods plant dreams as messages, breadcrumbs, scattered in the mind to lead you somewhere, or away from somewhere worse. You stop sleeping fully. You doze in shifts. You wrap your bead in linen and place it under your tongue. You start to speak aloud as you dream, hoping someone will overhear and remind you which parts were yours. But when you wake, no one ever answers, and you begin to suspect that maybe you never slept at all. It starts with a whisper behind a statue. You're sweeping the side corridor, the one lined with lesser-known gods, faces worn smooth by centuries of sighs. The air feels stiller here. Not empty, just waiting. Then you hear it. A sound too soft to be wind, too intentional to be nothing. Not words, exactly, just a breath. With shape, you pause at the statue of Thoth, the scribe god. Ibis headed and solemn. You've passed him 100 times. But tonight, something's different. His beak is tilted just a hair more downward, and there's a hairline crack behind his left shoulder you swear wasn't there before. You brush your fingers against it. The stone shudders just a little. as if exhaling dot, and the wall behind it clicks. A seam appears. Thin as thread. You press it. The stone moves, revealing a narrow passage, just wide enough for one person. You hesitate. Not because you're afraid, because something in your blood feels. Recognize that you step inside. The air is colder, thicker, not stale. Exactly, but used. Like something had been breathing it for centuries before you arrived. You light a small oil lamp and descend. The walls are close. Close enough to scrape your shoulders. Carved with markings you don't recognize, some that move slightly when you pass. At the bottom, a room, circular, low ceiling. No altar, no idol. Just walls, covered in inscriptions. They shimmer faintly, like heat off stone. And in the center, a cushion. Reed woven, ancient. And warm, like someone just stood up. You kneel before the wall. The glyphs rearrange themselves. You watch. One forms clearly before you. Your name, but not your name now. Your name. Before. It rings in your chest like a chime you didn't know was broken. Then you hear it. A voice. Behind you. Ah, finally awake are we? You turn. No one. The lamp flickers. And for a moment, your shadow is not your own. It's taller. Straighter. Wrapped in linen, holding a stylus, writing something. You blink. It's just your silhouette again. You don't go back the way you came. There is no door now, only a ramp leading upward. But not quite back to where you started. You emerge into a chamber you've never seen before. And yet, it feels like home. Some say temples shift over time, not in brick, but in meaning. That rooms move, appear, vanish, only when the temple wants you to see them. Others whisper that certain statues are guardians not of gods, but of entrances. That what lies behind them isn't for prayer, but for remembering what came before birth. You look back at the passage. Gone. You tell no one. But that night, your bead glows faintly in the dark, even when wrapped in cloth. And you don't dream. You remember. You notice the first flame at dusk. It's in the northern corridor, the one with the cracked pillar and the statue of Bastet that smells like old cloves. You're lighting the evening lamps one by one, same as always. Cotton wick, oil, flint, flame. Except this one lights before you strike. You blink. The torch flickers to life, just as your hand gets close, like it was expecting you. Like it lit itself to save you the effort. You glance around. Nothing. Just the sound of the wind outside and the steady drip of water from a cracked ceiling tile. You chalk it up to coincidence. Then it happens. Again, a different torch, different corridor. This time, the flame dances, but not like fire should. It twirls inward, back into the wick, then out again, pulsing gently. It's beautiful. Until you realize that the smoke is drifting downward into the stone. You reach out. Your fingers pause just inches from the fire. No heat. You touch it. Nothing. Cool. Not cold, cool. Like early morning air. The flame moves across your skin like silk. It doesn't burn. It remembers. You leave it alone. You keep walking. Further along the hall. You pass the old sundial carved into the wall. Just decoration, really, until you realize the shadow's going the wrong way. It's nearly nightfall, but the shadow is climbing. As though the sun were rising. Again. Backwards. You place your hand against the stone, and you feel it. Heartbeat. Faint. Deep, like the temple itself is pulsing against time. Later that night, the senior priest finds you staring at a torch. He says nothing at first. Then, softly, you've crossed into the middle. You ask what that means. He only smiles sadly. Most never notice when they do. Fewer still return from it. You try to return to your routine, but now things don't align. You wake before you sleep. You dream of events that haven't happened, then live them the next day. A cup falls. You dream it shattering. The next morning it does. A cat meows. You dream its path. The next day, It walks it. You stop writing dreams down because they aren't dreams anymore. Some say the innermost parts of temples were built on liminal points, places where time thins like old cloth, where memory and prophecy bleed into each other. Others believe the gods move through time the way we move through rooms. And once they notice you, you start to drift with them. You begin to see other versions of the temple in the corners of your eyes. Older, younger, sometimes ruined, sometimes not built yet. Once you turn a corner and the walls are fresh limestone. No soot, no carvings. Just silence and potential. You blink. The hallway's old again. But now you question every shadow. You light a lamp, then later find it already burning. You greet a priest. He blinks, startled, and says he spoke to you earlier, but you hadn't arrived. Yet, you no longer trust the clocks, because they're not wrong. You are. It starts with the statue shifting, not moving, nothing so crass. No lurching stone limbs or glowing eyes. That would be too obvious. No. This is subtler, quieter, like someone changing their mind mid-thought. You're sweeping in the hall of lesser thrones, brushing dust from the toes of deities barely remembered. Tatnan, Mayas, even the crocodile-faced Kentia Menchu. You've done this a dozen times. You know their poses by heart. But today, Tatnan's hand? It's higher, palm outward, like he's signaling you to stop. You pause, brush your fingers across. The carving, the stone is smooth. No tool marks. No recent work. Still, the hand is different, raised in greeting or warning. You can't tell. You take 3 steps back, then notice Mikasa's eyes. They follow you. Not dramatically, but if you stare long enough to risk your sanity, the irises seem to nudge ever so slightly toward you. You test it. Turn away, turn back. Still there. Watching. The air is heavier now. You can smell granite and smoke and the faint, impossible scent of blood oranges. Then one of the acolytes screams. She's in the far end of the corridor, knees buckled, staring up at a lion-headed statue. I heard it breathe, she whispers. Her voice is wrong, like it's coming from behind a curtain. She doesn't return to the temple the next day. You understand. You begin watching the statues. Really watching, and you notice things. Flake of lapis lazuli beneath Anubis's foot that wasn't there before. New glyph etched on the base of Isis. 3 lines, a curve, and an eye that winks when you're not looking. You start dreaming of them. Not as statues. As people. Tall, impossibly tall. Faces blurred, like water that remembers your reflection, but not your name. They don't speak. They show visions, memories. One leads you by the hand into a field of wheat where every stalk hums a different note. One presses a hand to your chest, and you see your own birth from above, like the gods were in the room, watching. You wake breathless. Each time you pass the statues now, they feel warm. You test one. Place your palm on. Based its knee. Your skin tingles. As if you've touched something that's breathing very slowly. Some say statues in temples weren't meant to represent gods. They were seats, waiting for gods to return and wear them like masks, like vessels. Others say the statues remember more than we do, that the stone is etched with echoes of every prayer, every sacrifice, every whisper made in desperation. And if you stay long enough, the stone starts whispering back. You catch phrases muttered in corners where no one stands. He sees you now. Do not forget your name again. The hand is open. The hand is closed. It gets harder to tell which thoughts are yours. Harder still to want to know. Because part of you likes it. The attention. The feeling that the gods not only exist, but are listening. To you, watching you, preparing you. It begins with a flicker, just above the altar. You're cleaning out the oil from the old ceremonial bowls. Fingers slick with residue and ash. When you notice it, a shape hovering in the corner of your eye. A light that shouldn't be there. You turn your head. Nothing. But when you turn back, It pulses again, faint, like moonlight seen through smoke. And then it moves. GLYPH. No dash, several. Projected against the wall, not carved, not painted. Cast. You step closer and realize the light is coming from inside the stone, like the wall has been smoldering quietly for centuries, waiting for the right moment to leak. The glyphs shimmer, faintly blue, shifting in order as you watch. 1 resembles your own name, but elongated, twisted, like it's stretching towards something it used to be. You whisper it aloud. The wall responds. Just a breath of air. A sigh from a crack that wasn't there a moment before. Then the glyphs vanish. Press your hand to the wall. It feels soft. Not like wet clay, but like memory. And suddenly, a flash. A hallway of gold. A mirror that doesn't show your face. A set of stairs spiraling downward, deeper than the temple itself. You stumble back, breathing hard. There's a mark on your palm, not a burn, a glyph, stamped in pale blue, gone by morning. But your dreams are now soaked in light, not firelight, not sunlight. Something else. The kind of light that's seen things. You dream of it pouring through cracks in temple ceilings, illuminating figures who don't cast shadows. You see scribes writing with flame, priests speaking languages in reverse. You see yourself standing at the center of the spiral, holding a lamp that burns without oil. You wake with a headache and a feeling like you've forgotten something important. And then the wall speaks again, not with sound, but with color. A band of shifting hues, like a sunrise being slowly rewound. It passes across the sandstone, and as it does, glyphs appear, each one visible for only a moment before dissolving. You recognize none of them. And all of them. It feels like reading in a language you've never studied, but somehow know in your bones. You start transcribing. At first just on scraps, then in the dirt. Then directly on your skin. Lines along your forearms, across your shoulders. One on your cheek, shaped like a rising sun that never quite crests the horizon. The other acolytes notice, but they don't ask. They only bow slightly when you pass. You're not sure if it's respect or precaution. Some say the oldest temples were built on sites where the veil between light and stone was thinnest. That certain walls held not just gods but instructions, blueprints, memories too vast to speak aloud. Others whisper of the burning words, inscriptions that rewrite themselves in the presence of a soul that's close enough to remembering what it used to be. You begin sleeping beside the wall. You stop dreaming. You start knowing. They leave you a gift, not wrapped, not labeled, not even hidden. Just placed right at the foot of your mat. A mask. Bronze, smoothed by time, with inlays of carnelian and faint gold etched at the lips and eyes. It's heavier than it looks like. It's not just metal, but history solidified. You know you're not supposed to touch it, but of course, you do. The moment your fingers brush its surface, you feel it. A stillness, like your heartbeat steps aside for a moment to let something older walk through. Your hand trembles. You lift the mask and turn it over. The inside is lined in soft leather, warm despite the chill in the air. Then, without quite knowing where you put it on, the world doesn't vanish. It blinks. Just once. And when it opens again, it's no longer yours. You're in a chamber you've never seen. Walls carved with stories halfway through their own telling. Statues and poses no sculpture should understand. And in the center, you. Seated. Unmoving. Wearing the mask, except you're not in the mask anymore. You're watching the mask. Breathes. It raises its head. It speaks your voice, but with vowels stretched long and ancient. You've borrowed the face. Now wear the memory. Then darkness when you wake. The mask is still on your chest, but your hands bear traces of things you didn't touch. Dust from rooms you've never entered. Ink under your nails in a color you've never seen. Something between violet and obsidian. You try to speak, and for a moment, the wrong voice comes out. Not wrong. Exactly, just not yours. Deeper. slower dot with something behind it. You lock the mask away, try to forget it, but it follows, not physically dot in. Mirrors dot in dreams, dot in the way your shadow sometimes lifts its head before you do. The priests now keep there. Distance dot not in fear. In reverence, they speak of a figure in the old stories, the face borrower. A servant chosen by the gods to carry not only messages, but selves. A living vessel. You start hearing your name in places you've never walked. Whispers. In the grain storage. In the laundry basin. On the lips of children who shouldn't know it. Once, a cat curls up beside you, stares directly into your eyes, and says, without moving its mouth, "You wore it well." You stop eating as much. Your appetite belongs to someone else now. Some say gods don't give gifts, they give obligations. That every token left in the dark is a door, and once you touch it, you belong to what's on the other side. Others whisper that certain masks were forged not to conceal the wearer, but to help the temple remember who's forgotten. You lie awake. For hours, staring at the ceiling dot, waiting for your own breath to return, wondering if you gave it away the night you put on the face, or if it ever really belonged to you in the first place. The stars begin to notice you dot at first. It's just a feeling like the sky is listening when you walk beneath it. The air doesn't move, but something presses gently against your skin, like the hush before a question. Then they begin to change. One evening, as you light the final torch on the temple's rooftop terrace, you glance upward. The constellations are wrong, just slightly. One star, just over your shoulder, has moved. You know this because you've watched the same sky since you were old enough to remember your own breath. And that star? It wasn't there. Now it pulses, like it's waiting. You blink. It holds still. Coy. Like it's pretending it never moved. The next night, another star winks out, only to reappear directly above the main sanctuary, hovering like an exhalation caught in place. You try to chart the movements, connect the patterns, but the lines they draw don't match any map or myth. Not a falcon, or boat, or jackal. They form a face. Yours. Stretched, angular, subtle, but unmistakable. You lie awake that night, staring at the ceiling, trying not to imagine. Your own eyes looking down from above. Then come the dreams. You float, weightless, over black rivers of sand, constellations hanging from invisible threads. The stars speak, but not in words. In pulls. You feel their gravity, like thoughts tugging at the back of your mind. They ask questions you don't understand, and offer answers you didn't ask for. When you wake, there's stardust on your palms. Not metaphor. Real dust. Fine, silver, and fading quickly in the morning sun. You no longer need a torch to walk the temple at night. The light comes with you. One evening, you're summoned to the high priest. He looks older than ever, fragile. He places a hand on your shoulder and says softly, "They're watching through you now. Be kind to their sight." Then he steps back. Bows. And never speaks to you again. That night, the temple cat curls around your ankles. You swear you hear her purring in time with the stars. Some say those who serve too, long under the gods, begin to pull the sky into themselves. That starlight is not just light but memory, fallen from the heavens and seeking vessels. Others whisper that the stars are not far away, but asleep beneath the earth. And when one of them wakes, it borrows a human body to remember how to walk. You start sleeping with your eyes open, and sometimes you see the stars blink back. You stop walking alone. Not by choice. You're still the only one in the corridor. No acolytes, no priests, not even the lazy temple cats slinking between pillars. But you're not alone, because now, every time your foot touches the floor, there's a second step, half a beat behind you. Soft, barefoot, but there, you test it. Pause. Wait. Nothing. Then you move again, and it follows. Always just enough to make you question it. Always just enough to confirm it. At first, you think it's a trick of acoustics, but then one night, You walk across the central atrium, and the echo steps left when you step right. You freeze, and the step doesn't dot, it keeps walking, until it stops. Somewhere behind you, breathing, you can't hear it, but your skin knows. Spin, nothing, just moonlight, and the statue of Osiris smiling too softly for comfort. The next day, new carvings appear, small ones. Just ankle-high, tiny figures walking. In pairs, one ahead, one behind. Some are holding hands, some are not. You ask one of the novice scribes if they've seen them. They squint, then frown. What carvings? They don't see them, but you do, so you watch. And over the next few days, you see the carvings move, just slightly. One figure leans in closer, one turns its head, one at the far end of the hall looks exactly like you, even the scar on your chin. Behind it, a second figure, larger, unfinished, like it's being carved as you walk. You test it. Walk the corridor every night. Each morning, the stone has changed, and each night, the second step is louder. You stop going that way, but it doesn't matter. Now, you hear the footsteps everywhere, even when you're lying down, even when you're asleep. They appear in your dreams too. You walk the temple at night, and the second self walks just behind, never speaking, never touching, just shadowing. Once, you stop and ask aloud, "What do you want?" The air grows colder, and the answer comes not in sound, but in your own voice from behind your lips, to remember how it felt to be you. Some say the temple was built over paths that overlap, where time folds in on itself like fabric left in sun-warmed baskets. That sometimes your future self comes back just to watch. Others believe that certain echoes are not from the past, but from souls still deciding whether they want to be born again. You begin walking slower, so it has less to imitate, but still, it follows. And sometimes, just before you fall asleep, you feel it crawl beneath your skin. Not malevolent, not kind, just familiar. It begins with the oil. You've lit 1,000 lamps before, blended hundreds of sacred mixtures, cedarwood, myrrh, frankincense, the temple's breath. But this night, something's off. You dip the wick, and the scent hits you faint at first, then overwhelming, not unpleasant, just impossible. It smells like a memory you never made. Desert rain. Wet linen. Someone whispering your name through silk. Your knees weaken. Grip the altar to steady yourself. The flame leaps higher than it should, flaring blue for a moment before settling. You breathe it in again. And the world pulls inward. The pillars tilt. The walls curve. Your skin forgets what heat means. Then, you're no longer in the sanctuary. You're in a room, small, round, walls made of polished stone, etched with symbols you recognize from your dreams. The air is thick with that same scent. You raise your hands in there, smaller. Younger. You're not you, not quite. You're wearing white linen and holding a vial of oil that glows from within. Unstopper it. The scent fills the space completely. And from the stone, a voice emerges, not loud, not deep. Just knowing. You asked to be remembered. We answered. The stone beneath your feet softens. You fall, but not down. Inward. Through 100 moments you didn't live, but somehow remember. You kneeling before a god with no face. You carving glyphs by moonlight into your own chest. You standing in the center of an empty hall as invisible hands anoint your brow. You awaken gasping. Back in the sanctuary. The flame burns steady. The vial is gone, but your skin is slick with oil that shouldn't exist. And the scent? Still there, fainter now, like the room's trying to forget what happened. Your hands shake as you wash them. The water runs clear, but your reflection in the basin smiles just half a second too late. Later, you find a new mark on the inside of your wrist. A spiral. Not ink, not burn, just memory curled into flesh. Some say sacred oils were more than offerings. They were keys. blended precisely to unlock memories stored in the bones, not the brain. Others whisper that certain scents weren't crafted, they were called, coaxed from the air between worlds by those who remembered how you begin to notice things. When you walk into a room, people stop talking as if they were speaking of you before you entered. The torches burn longer where you sit. The cats follow you more. And at night, your dreams are soaked in oil and light and a voice that keeps repeating, "Do not forget the door you opened." You don't know which door they mean, but now every hallway feels like it might be the one. The silence comes first, not the peaceful kind. Not the hush of dawn or the quiet after rain. This silence is thick, heavy, intentional. Like something is holding its breath. It follows you. Not always, just when you're alone. Or when you think you're alone. The temple has always had its quiet places, storerooms, alcoves, deep corridors where sunlight forgets to visit. But now, even the noisy places fall still when you enter. No footsteps. No rustle of robes. No muttering of priests. Or scrape of broom on stone. Just stillness. So complete, it feels engineered. One day, you walk through the hall of prayers, past the 6 headless statues, and every torch along the wall extinguishes in order as you pass. Not violently, like they agreed to go out. Even your breath feels too loud. You pause. And in that deep, unnatural quiet, you hear it. A voice. No louder than thought. Not spoken through ears, but through space. Low whisper. One word. Closer. You take a step back. The silence follows. Later that night, you sit in the scribe's chamber, trying to record what happened. But the ink will not dry. It spreads, curls across the papyrus into shapes you didn't draw. Glyphs you don't know, but your hand trembles because a part of you does know. You throw the sheet into the fire. The flames turn blue, and the silence returns. Some say temples were tuned, not like instruments, but like vessels, designed to resonate with certain frequencies, certain thoughts. Others whisper that silence is the first voice, the sound the gods used before language. That if you listen long enough, you begin to hear what the stones have always been saying. The next morning, the walls of your chamber are covered in faint impressions. Not carved. Just pressed. Like something inside the stone was trying to push out. Hands. Dozens of them. Child-sized, adult-sized, some far, far too large. All reaching. You don't scream. You don't run. You just whisper, "I hear you." And the silence answers. Not with noise, but with motion. The walls breathe, the air bends, the cats hiss. You fall to your knees, clutching your ears, but there's no sound, just a pressure in your skull, like a thought trying to crawl out of your mind and into the room. Then it stops. Everything stills. The silence recedes. But now, it's not just the absence of sound. It's a presence, something that walks beside you. A companion. Watching. Waiting. They start dressing you differently. Not at first. At first, it's just a sash, crimson, instead of the usual bone white. You think it's a mistake until a priest you've never spoken to bows as he ties it around your waist, whispering for the offering to walk unnoticed. You don't ask what he means, because by now, you've learned no one answers questions in temples. They just open doors. The next day, your sandals are replaced. The solas are softer, quieter. So you no longer hear your own footsteps. But something else does. Then the linens, layered and dyed in ochre and charcoal, stitched with symbols you vaguely recognize from a wall you used to sweep every 6th day. And on the 7th day, your name is changed. Not by vote, not by right, simply whispered. By someone in the dark. And you feel it settle on your shoulders like a crown of dust. From that moment, no one calls you by your old name. Even you forget it sometimes. They assign you a room near the center, one you didn't know existed. The air there smells of salt and smoke, and when you sleep, you dream of deep, rhythmic chanting that never quite resolves into words. You wake with your hands pressed together, in patterns you don't remember learning. On the 11th night, they come, not to summon you, to prepare you. Two priests, draped in veils, wordless. One traces a spiral over your forehead with oil that glows faintly in the dark. The other presses a cold ring to your chest. Then they leave. You follow, not because you're told, but because something inside you already knows. The way, the corridor they take you through, is older than the rest. The walls pulse faintly like veins, and as you pass, you hear 100 heartbeats from within the stone. None of them yours. At the end, a chamber, circular, windowless, lit only by fire reflected in water. You're led to the center. They remove your sash. Your sandals. Your voice. They don't gag you. You just forget how to speak. They place a mask in your hands, not bronze this. Time. Stone. Cool. Dense. Familiar. It's single quotes S. Not made to conceal. It's made to anchor. You don't put it on. You let it rest in your lap. And the chanting begins not from the priests, but from everywhere. From the floor, the ceiling, your ribs. It's not in a language you know, but your bones understand. You have returned. You have remembered. You are ready. Some say rituals in the old temples weren't performances, they were contracts. Signed not with ink, but with memory. Others whisper that the most sacred ceremonies are done not for the gods to see, but for them to inhabit. You don't remember falling asleep, but you wake with the mask on your face, and your own breath echoing back at you from far, far away. You wake up. Yesterday. Not metaphorically. You sit up, and the sun slants wrong across the floor, and the incense hasn't yet been lit, and the tray you dropped at breakfast still intact, sitting peacefully beside your bed. You test it. Walk out into the hallway and pass an acolyte you remember speaking to. He hasn't spoken to you yet. You know what he's about to say. You mouth the words along with him. Then, just to be sure, you knock over the tray. The same clatter, the same bounce, the same shard that slides exactly under the painted vase. You didn't dream it. You've been here before. You're walking through time sideways now, not linearly, not even randomly, just fluidly. You try to map it. Try to mark walls with a charcoal X each time you pass. But when you return, the wall's already marked, sometimes 2 marks, sometimes 3, sometimes your own handwriting scrawled upside down. One night you step into the lamp chamber, and you're already there. Lighting a wick, wearing the stone mask. You lock eyes with yourself, and for a long moment, neither of you moves. Then your other self whispers, very softly, "Don't stay too long, or you'll start remembering the wrong life," and vanishes. No footsteps, no ripple, just gone. Later, in the scribe's quarters, you find pages you haven't written yet, signed in your name, entries dated 5 days ahead, describing this exact moment. Every word. Even now, your fingers tremble as you turn the page. And it says, your fingers tremble as you turn the page. You drop the scroll. A cat watches from the doorway and slowly blinks, as if it too knows how many versions of you have been here. You ask a priest what's happening. He doesn't answer. He just sighs and says, "You've entered the center." You ask, "Of what?" He simply says, "Yes." Some say the inner sanctums of temples were not sacred because of who was worshipped there, but because they were anchored at the intersection of time and thought. Places where stories looped until someone stepped out of the page. Others believe that certain rituals were not meant to please the gods, but to trap them. And every time you relive a moment, it's not because you're lost, it's because something doesn't want you to leave. You begin to forget which version of you is speaking, or walking, or dreaming. But strangely, it doesn't scare you. It just makes you quiet. Careful. Like every breath might echo both backward and forward forever. And somewhere in that stillness, you hear your own voice calling from a corridor you haven't walked yet. Come see what you used to be. You descend. The stairs were never shown to you. Not drawn on temple scrolls. Not whispered in passing. They're just there one morning. At the back of the storage chamber, behind the amphory of dried fig paste and brittle linens, where the wall used to be solid. Now, a seam, barely a breath wide. You press your palm against it, and the stone sighs. A doorway appears. And behind it, steps curling downward. Carved so long ago, the edges are worn smooth by forgotten feet. You don't bring a torch. You don't need one. There's a light, not ahead. Below. Faint. Amber, not flickering like fire, but steady, like the glow behind closed eyes. You walk. The silence here is a different kind. Not waiting. Watching. The air smells of copper and salt and something bitter, like wet papyrus steeped in time. The walls are covered in glyphs, not cut into stone. Pressed. Like fingertips into clay. And as you descend, you realize they're moving, just slightly, breathing. Perhaps you stop reading them after the third step, because on the fourth, one turns to look at you. When you reach the bottom, the chamber opens. Vast. Empty. Except for the thing in the center. Not a statue. Not alive. Something in between. A shape. Humanoid mostly. Covered in linen and resin and gold leaf, but not in the way of burial. More like containment. It's seated. Arms crossed. Head bowed. Waiting. You know its name without hearing it. It's not a name in any human tongue. It's a feeling. The sound of old stone cracking in heat. The hush of dust falling for the first time in centuries. You step closer. The air thickens. The ground hums. Your thoughts slow, like they're being weighed. Measured. And then the thing speaks. Not aloud. Not inside you. Just through you. Words forming on your tongue without permission. You came back slow this time. You try to speak, but you've forgotten how. The thing continues. You were the last to carry it. The memory. The shape. The name. You dropped it in the river. You fall to your knees. Something inside your chest cracks. Not painfully. Like a seal being broken. Memories spill out. Not yours. Ancient ones. You see priests in animal masks, bowing before a figure wrapped in gold wire. You see stars being charted in blood. You see yourself again offering the same breath to the same flame across lifetimes. And the thing speaks once more. You're the lock, and the key, and the one who forgets where the door is. Some say at the heart of every temple lies a story too old to be spoken, so they bury it in silence, wrap it in names, and set it beneath the altar until someone dreams it loud enough to dig back down. Others whisper that deep beneath the foundations, older than gods and kings and time itself, there waits a piece of you you've never met, and it remembers everything. You've tried to forget. You stand, you bow, not out of obedience, but recognition. This is not the end of the temple. This is its beginning, its heart, and it's beating with your name. The temple breathes, not just the halls, or the walls, or the chambers lined with oil and dust and memory. The whole thing. You feel it rising beneath your feet, expanding like it's been waiting for you to wake something buried in its chest. And now, it exhales. You ascend the stairs slowly. Each step feels longer than the last. By the time you reach the upper courtyard, the night sky has changed. The stars aren't where you left them. They've arranged themselves. Not randomly. Not poetically. Deliberately. Into a single, sweeping glyph that stretches across the heavens. An ideogram written in light, legible only to you. And you read it like a name you once answered to in a dream. Suddenly, the wind picks up. But not from the north, not from any direction at all. It moves like a voice, circling you, folding around your shoulders, slipping down your spine. It says nothing you can quote, but you understand it completely. You are not from here, not you don't belong, not you were chosen. Just the simple celestial fact that your breath was never meant to be this heavy, this warm, this confined to lungs and bone. You stare up. And the sky stares back. A single star pulses brighter dot, then falls dot not fast. Not trailing flame like a comet dot, it descends soft, deliberate, until it hovers just above your open palm dot. It's not hot dot, it doesn't burn dot, it just remembers. When it touches you, it vanishes, and your head fills with silence so complete it feels. Like death, but it's not death dot, it's truth. You fall to your knees. You remember your other names, the ones never spoken aloud. You remember what the gods forgot. You remember being not human. Not spirit, but something stranger. A bridge, a boundary, a breath between realms. The priests don't come to find you, because they already know. They've always known. Some say the stars do not. Watch us, they wait for us to remember that we used to stand among them. Others whisper that ancient temples weren't built to praise the sky, but to contain it, to hold pieces of it steady until someone returned who could hold the sky without shattering. That someone is you. The temple walls begin to shimmer. The glyphs glow faintly again, just like they did in the beginning dot, but now they whisper your name in full, all of it. And it takes you 3 breaths just to hear the first syllable. You understand now why. Your dreams were never dreams. They were rehearsals for this. You don't walk back inside dot, you simply are. The temple fades around you, not crumbling, not vanishing, but folding itself inward like a blanket, retreating into the hush it was born from. You sit. The stones beneath you are warm, like a memory that hasn't cooled yet dot above. The sky returns to its usual disarray, stars scattered, disinterested, pretending nothing happened. You smile, because now you know. You know what the priests never wrote, what the gods only whispered into bowls of smoke, what the wind has been rehearsing in your ears for years. You know the truth of your name, and you know that even truth gets sleepy. You lie down dot, the night tucks itself around you like linen worn thin, with remembering dot your body no longer aches. It hums, like a bell just after ringing dot. The cats circle close. One curls on your chest, one by your feet. One watches the stars, to make sure they don't shift too suddenly. Your breath slows. The stars breathe with you, dot soft. Long exhal atio ns dot, as if the universe is trying not to wake itself. The mask is beside you, not on your face dot. It doesn't need to be any more dot. It has done its part, that it remembers for you. You close your eyes, not to escape the story, but to live inside it fully, finally, peacefully. Some say the most sacred duty isn't service or ritual or remembrance. It's rest, because sleep is the only place the gods can visit without form. And tonight, they gather dot quietly dot gently dot as guests. They sit beside you, not speaking, just listening to you dream. And as the temple fades into the hush of breath and dust and stars, the night says, ancient memories closed, tonight is yours. Good night.